All right, welcome back, Wayward Souls, to Double Tap In. And here today we have two special guests. One returning, Spawn number one, right?
That's right.
Okay. And then his best good friend, Joe. So I'm gonna let you guys do, Josh, if you want to do another like a little reintroduction, and then Joe, if you want to take it from there, and we'll see where this goes.
Straight to hell. I know where it's going.
Right.
Well, first off, I do want to make a quick correction. You said Spawn number one. That's just the one that we know about.
That's
so
fair.
I don't know.
We know about. Yeah.
That's the
That
first
is
one
fair.
we know about.
That is fair. I apologize to anybody that we don't know about. This is the first claimed Spawn. Maybe
Yes,
that's what we'll
first one claimed. Yes.
Yeah. He's the first fuck trophy I was able to keep.
Well,
53 seconds.
Joe is one of my best friends. We grew up next door to one another, and they moved down on the same street that we were on, and back then I just rode my bike over there, whatever we were doing, and basically been best friends ever since. So we've done quite a bit together over the years, whether it's been just school and in college, and post life and married life and all that kind of stuff. So shared a lot of great experiences with this guy.
Yeah. So I will say it's a short story here. So 2007, we moved down from Atlanta, and this shows kind of the difference in personalities of like normal kids versus like how Josh was. So we moved down there in 2007, and I was I think 14, and Josh was I don't know, 35 at that point. I don't know. I don't remember. Old man. He's like 2 years older than me, but he walks over, and I'm doing what most 14-year-old kids are doing in the driveway, riding a skateboard. And Josh walks over, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Josh. I just graduated from high school, and I'm headed to Georgia Southern next year. What's your name?" God dang. He is
What's Georgia Southern?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is that? You transfer in high schools or whatever. But so anyway, that was our first interaction. He's always been the outgoing one. So yeah, we've had a lot of good times. A lot of hunting, a lot of fishing, a lot of craziness. So
Very nice. Very nice. I think there was some talk. Go ahead.
Did you all venture to Texas a couple years ago?
we did. So in 2022, we were looking to do a travel hunt because we had not. Well, I don't think Josh had. I had not ever done any sort of travel hunt before. We'd always, been deer hunting in Georgia, turkey hunting, and quail, and all that stuff for years, but had never traveled outside the state. So, I was looking around in Texas, and I'm like, okay, you know what? These exotic species really, are really cool. And I'd looked into these aoudad hunts where they're I guess the technical name is called a Barbary sheep, and they're originally African species. And so I asked Josh, I was like, what do you think about these aoudads? I mean, they're cool. They're technically an exotic, but they're native, to these South Texas, mountain ranges out there on the Mexican border. And so he's like, all right, yeah, cool. Sounds good. Let's see what we got, try to find a guide and all this stuff. So I do a little bit of research.
A little bit.
Emphasis on a little bit.
Yeah. Well, that's the lesson in this story, but I'll get to that in a minute. But so I do a little bit of research, quick Google search and find this guy. And I don't know, Josh, should we say his name or should we not say it? Just I don't want to throw the guy under the bus.
You can say it.
Okay. All right. So I can't remember the name of the outfitter, but I know the guy's name. Chris Leland.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Huntaouldad.com. Like, how does it get any less legit than that? That's perfect, right? Huntaouldad.com. He's obviously been doing it a long time if he has that website domain and all this stuff. So I'm just like, okay, what could go wrong? So I call the guy,
What could go
and
wrong?
he's like, well, and he's like, he's a super nice guy on the phone. And he said, oh, by the way, I do a 15% military discount or veteran discount. And I'm like, great. So it's cheap and it's legit, So, so we booked the hunt and we went out. I don't know. It was probably 6 months in advance. So we go out about 6 months later. We fly into Houston, and Josh flies in from Brunswick or Jacksonville, and I flew in from Atlanta. So we meet at the Houston airport, fly first class to Midland, Texas. Get to Midland, get a rental car, and make the 4-hour road trip to a place called Terralingua, Texas.
And we were pretty toasted when we got there.
We were toasted. Yeah. There were no shortage of, I think I started drinking mimosas at about 4 a.m. that day. So, 6 o'clock Central Time rolls around, and you're pretty well toasted. So, anyway, long story short, we get out there and we meet Chris the next day. And Josh, jump in at any time, because there's a lot in this thing where it's like, it was like a dream. You have those dreams where you're like, you wake up and you go, what in the hell just happened? That was this entire trip. So we meet Chris the next day. And
when we say meet him, we're in Terralingua, Texas, and there is one billboard on the side of this highway. And he said, yeah, just park your car next to this billboard. I'll pick you up and I'll take you out to where we're hunting.
Mhm.
And it is like middle of nowhere. There is not a person, car to be seen. And this dude pulls
Nothing.
up in this raggedy Jeep Liberty that is like beat to shit and covered in dust. And you're like, all right, this is about to get interesting.
Well, it's one of those moments where you think this is about to be the greatest hunt ever, or this is going to be.
They're
this
going
is
to
gonna
find
be a
my body
mess.
in the desert.
Well, little did we know that as this trip progressed on, and the more we learned about how the people down there operate and how this guy operates, I did learn one lesson. And I'm wondering, hopefully there's some post-production. Maybe you can edit out his name, because I don't know.
Nope.
Great. All right. So maybe I shouldn't tell some of these stories. We learned that if you ever need to kill anybody, you drag them out in the middle of nowhere, and you take everything, or you leave everything but the bootlaces, because the javelinas eat everything else. So we learned that.
And make sure to hit him in the head with a shovel.
With a shovel to crack the skull.
Crack the skull, and everything dissipates.
This is the kind of stuff we were learning with this guy. Not about sheep, where are the animals, where to glass, where to go, where to do this. These are the kind of stories we're learning on the trip to the property that, or I guess the lease. I assume it was a lease. Maybe we were trespassing the whole time. I don't know.
It was a federal park.
It may have been.
Could have been.
That's what you get for not doing your homework. So
when you have zero cell service and you download OnX and you're looking at these maps and you're like, they're not in any LLC. They're not in any name that I'm familiar with. And, the guide drops us off out here, and we're looking at 2 mountain ranges. And he says, all right, I'm going to put one of you out here on this, mountain range. You walk up the side and glass, and then I'm going to drop you off about 1.5 miles away, and you glass this mountain range. And he never says, like, you can go this far. You can, this is the territory that you're in. It's just like, get out, good luck. And, we're asking him, we're like, hey, have you seen sheep out here? And he's like, oh, yeah. They're sheep. You'll see them. I saw ewes on this, hillside the other day, and we're asking him, like, well, if we shoot in this direction, because you're in the mountains, you just don't want to take a blind shot, skyline shot. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. There's nobody around here. And you're like,
well, and that was probably one of the only things he said that was true.
Yeah.
You talk about desolate. This place. I picture Mars looking a lot like this place. It is so remote, so in the middle of nowhere. Like all the water that we drank had to be boiled. if it wasn't bottled.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking like there was just nothing, I'm used to the Southeast and I'm used to specifically the Atlanta area with development. I mean, there's just no more wildlife, true wildlife. Even when you get out in the country, you're still only 45 minutes from town, the furthest out you get. I mean, this place, if you got hurt, not only could they not find you, but even if they knew exactly where you were, it would take them 4 hours to get you to the nearest town, which was Alpine, Texas. And so it was, and really you were closer to a lot of Mexican towns than you were to any American cities. So it was sketchy just being there. But I remember one of the first conversations we had with Chris, and this is about the amount of context that we got. He said, back after I moved to Mexico and I took on a job as a plumber, and the guy I was working under told me, he said, if you can't he said, if you can't squeeze a turd in one hand and eat a ham sandwich in the other hand, then you ain't cut out to be a plumber. And I'm like, wise life lesson. Thanks.
Yeah.
So those were the sorts of, thought-provoking conversations that was going on between us and the guide on the way to the wherever we were hunting at. So anyway, it was a mess. Long story short, we hunted for 3 days? 3 or 4 days, Josh? 3 days. It was, the terrain is unforgiving, to say the least. I wouldn't call them mountains. I mean, it's not like you're climbing, the Himalayas, but they're, it's a couple thousand feet in elevation up and down. It's all rocks and loose sand and that shale stuff. And everything is covered in these long, they're not cactus. What are they? They're like, they've got these spines that come off of it. And if you, I mean, we had to pull one out of Josh's leg with a pair of pliers. We saw tarantulas. I mean, it's just an unforgiving, hostile environment,
I mean, I had on, in the morning time you get out there, and it was September when we go out there, and in the morning time, I mean, the first day we got out there was in the mid 30s, and the wind was.
No, it was November.
It was November. You're right.
Yeah.
The wind was ripping, and so you're climbing up in the daytime, you got multiple layers on, and then by the afternoon, it was darn near 80 degrees.
Yeah.
And so I had 2 layers on, canvas, pants and an underlayer. And when that barb went through, we couldn't pull it out through the clothes. I had to strip down, pull the barb around my pants, and then Joe had to take pliers and just yank the piss out of it. And I mean, everything out there, we filmed a lot of it, and on there I say that, everything out here wants to poke you, stick you, kill you. I saw the biggest tarantula I've ever seen in my life. Scared the hell out of me. I mean, it was the size of like a dang pie plate. And so it was, the experience overall was a great experience for us being a first travel hunt. It kind of set the expectation of, what it takes to line up something like that. And then also when you go to somewhere new, you're not quite, unless you've done it before, you don't know what the experience is going to be like. And, at one point, Joe and I are on these separate mountains, and the first day we had walked a ton, just kind of glassing and kind of getting the lay of the land. And at one point, I'm on one mountain range, and I happen to catch a flash of Joe's spotting scope, because we didn't know where each other was. And so we kind of signal each other using, flashing, light, like we're in survival mode. And we're looking at each other through spotting scopes, and we're hand signaling to each other, like, hey, come over here, or, walk down this way. And, I mean, we're at least a mile and a half away from each other.
Right.
Wow.
So overall, that was quite the experience. We ended up seeing on the second day, we said, hey, we're not hunting separate anymore, because, if you fall on these rocks, I mean, we were climbing stuff that was so steep that, you get to points where you don't know if you can go up or down. And I was like, it's just not safe to be out here, you know, not having a partner or somebody that can at least assist you. So the second day we ended up hunting together, set up on a ridge, and the sun was starting to go down, and we're like, hey, let's just make our way back down. We don't want to be stuck in these mountains at night. You know, it's pitch black dark, and we climb back down to the bottom, and, you know, we start, you know, we're like, this hunt is just crazy. So we're down there drinking, BSing, and all of a sudden I'm looking through, I see like this shadow on this horizon. Ended up being like 740 yards away. And I'm looking, and this huge ram shows up at the top of this peak, which is right where we were sitting not even an hour before. And we're like, holy crap, there's actually an aoudad up there. And we thought that he would bed down up there for the night. The next day we go back in and kill him. And we told Chris, who was the guide, we said, hey, we just saw this monster ram up there. And his response was, he was like,
No way.
Shit, no way.
Yeah.
And like,
He was shocked.
There's a sign.
yeah.
Oh no, that was one of the last signs. That was the confirmation. Like, okay, all right. We obviously took you off guard by saying we found what we're looking for, but it was surreal, because when you hunt as hard as we were hunting, and sitting just hours just staring through the spotting scope, and then getting up, getting down, getting up, getting down, and you know, it's almost like, am I really seeing what I'm seeing here? You know, and we so this was at the bottom. You know, we're like back towards the road, and we're sitting there, and I had a bunch of mini bottles of Jack Daniels in my backpack, so we were just kind of, you know, having a few just to calm. And I think we had taken just about all our clothes off. We were just wearing a pair of pants and boots, you know, because by then we were just dying, you know, exhausted. And he kind of peeks over, and this is all on video. I mean, we really, and I think I kind of created about a 30-minute video on the whole hunt, just from all the footage that we've gotten. And so we got this moment on video where the ram kind of, he kind of crests over the horizon, and I can't remember which one of us saw him first, but then we both get the spotting scopes up, we're looking, and I get my phone camera, and I'm just like trying to zoom in so you can kind of see him in the video. And so then we start getting set up, because it's like, okay, we can make that shot, because it's on the closer end. And so I'm hunting with a 300 Win Mag. You know, Josh is hunting with a 308, and you know, that's within the limits. However, there were a couple of problems that we ranged him. He was about 740 yards, but it was not accounting for elevation. And it was also a horizon shot, which is total, you know, no, right? I don't care how many, you know, miles there are that separates you from humans. I mean, I just still wouldn't be comfortable with it, but it didn't matter, because as you would see in the video, he peeks up, you watch him, we see his horns, and they're sweeping way back, just a beautiful, you know, billy. And within, what was it, 10, 15 seconds, he turns around, walks back the other direction. So it was still a glimmer of hope, because we're like, okay, well, at least we know they exist, number one. And then number two, now we've kind of got a general idea, so that tomorrow morning we can go straight to a spot. And we'd scouted this whole place. I mean, it was probably 2 or 3 square miles, which doesn't, maybe it's a square mile that we were, because it feels like a lot bigger area when you're going up and down, and you know, it's as treacherous as this terrain was. But we knew every spot, you know. By this point, we'd had all the notes. We were writing notes and making little drawings to make sure we remembered certain landmarks. So we're like, okay, this is the game plan. We've got one more day to hunt. We saw him here. We're going to set up here. And we did. The next day, we set up in that spot, and we hunted that specific animal. And, you know, of course, you know, the end of the story, came back empty-handed. So it was just one of those things where it was like, from beginning to end, the hunt in itself was unsuccessful, but it was, you know, there was no better trial by fire, you know, for a Western style, you know, almost self-guided hunt, because that's really what it was. It was self-guided.
Yeah.
If anything, I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt and hope that that was a true, legit lease that we were allowed to be on. But that's really all we paid for. It's just the land, the rights to hunt.
The trespass fee.
Yeah.
Right, the trespass fee, exactly. So it was a great experience. I mean, there were times where, and I will go into, I don't know how
I'll
much
go
detail you
into
want
it.
to go into it. Okay,
I'll-
well, you know what story I was about to tell about it.
Heck
Riding
yeah.
down that road.
We're coming down this road, and it's sun's down. It's about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and we're coming back from our hunt spot, and where we were staying is down this like 15-mile long dirt road in the middle. I mean, in Terra Linguit's on the edge of Big Bend, and all of a sudden this random truck shows up out of nowhere, and he's like, "Oh, that's my buddy. What was his name? John or something?" And he's like,
Who
"Oh,
knows?
there's John." And he hammers this little Jeep, and we're doing 100 miles an hour down this road. And he swerves in front of him, slams on the brakes, and like we're power sliding, And he's like, "I'm gonna go talk to my buddy." And so he gets out, and Chris is leaning up in the truck talking to him, and he looks over, and he's like clearly talking about us, and looks back
Yeah,
down.
they keep looking at us.
And I told Joe, I said, "Joe, here's the plan." I was like, "I've got my 45 with me." I said, "I'm going to get out and start laying down some cover fire and start popping these dudes. You jump in the driver's seat. I'm going to leave the door open. And as soon as you put it in drive, I'm jumping back in, and we're hauling ass out of here."
The fuck out of here.
And Joe and I were both on the same level of, if we made a plan that how to kill these guys to get out of here alive. I mean, it got to the point where it was so sketchy that we were just very, very uncomfortable, and didn't know if we were about to get robbed or what it was. So
End up in a shallow
Yeah.
grave is turned into
Right.
buzzard.
yeah,
Well, and the thing is, to give some context, and I know anybody who's going to be listening to this is probably thinking, "Gee, that's kind of overreacting, don't you think?" I mean, the truth is that there's a lot of because this was the second or third
this was the
night.
last night. Yeah.
Okay, so we had a full 3 days worth with this guy of all these little comments and all this weirdness where he talks about jumping back and forth over the border and dragging bodies certain places, and crimes that there's no law enforcement out there except for Border Patrol. And so he had just made all these little comments where it was like, we didn't know, and we're outsiders. If these people were local, it's kind of like Deliverance where where, I mean,
Lay down.
it sounds like you're overreacting, but it's really not. It's like, it's more of just okay, if the craziest, weirdest thing happens, which he's kind of making us feel a little nervous, we got to have some sort of contingency plan. So luckily, of course, nothing happened. It was just weird.
That we know of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allegedly, nothing happened.
Well, then he followed us home, which is like not in the direction that he should have gone, to supposedly go where he lives. So it was just a very, very sketchy thing. And so that was the last night of the hunt. And I told Joe, I said, "Joe, we're getting up at the crack of dawn. Let's have all of our stuff packed and let's get out of here." And we're pulling out of the driveway, and it's snowing on this day. It's like sleeting snow. And we're like, "Yeah, let's just get out of these mountains, get back to, civilization." And as we're pulling out, I made the comment. I was like, I bet this dude just sleeps on the side of the road and just shows up, randomly. And we pull out on the main highway, and we didn't go maybe like 5 or 10 miles back towards Alpine. And sure enough, this dude is sleeping on the side
of the interstate
in his Jeep, and we're like, this is the icing on the cake here. Like, it just solidified every part of this hunt, all the weird interactions, comments. So when you're driving by him, and I looked at Joe and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." So
That's fucking wild.
Every day I would get a phone call from Josh. Well, I'd get videos along the way videos that Josh had done, like interviewing Joe or Joe interviewing Josh up on the mountain. First of all, they were pure fucking gold. I mean, just pure fucking gold, right? So the phone calls with Josh normally started with, "You're not going to believe this shit." And he goes, "Oh, wait, it gets better."
Yeah.
And so the next phone call, "Well, I said it yesterday. I mean it today. You're not going to believe this shit."
Wow.
Well, and where we're at, we're only 5 miles from the Mexican border, and we're right on the edge of the Rio Grande, and we're sitting up there, and a couple miles away, we're spotting through, and we see these donkeys out here, and just random ass donkeys walking around, and not only was it the stuff that we saw these donkeys doing was unbelievable. We
It was a donkey show in the desert.
Yeah,
It was a show. It was
just
definitely a show.
one stud donkey just making his rounds amongst his females that he was out there with.
Let's just say I got the impression that every day is breeding season for these donkeys.
Yeah. So we asked Chris, we're like, dude, what's up with these donkeys out here? Just random donkeys. He goes, oh, the Mexicans ride them across the border, saddlebag them. And then when they get over here, a truck picks them up and they just let the donkeys run wild. So
there's this feral donkey population over the years, allegedly.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I put the asterisk beside that, like allegedly, because again, all this information that we're given is, from our
Your
local
guide.
the chairman of the local brain trust down in Alpine, Texas. So it was an experience.
So
I'm getting videos of the donkey show.
Jesus
And
Christ.
It is. I'm telling you, this shit was all pure gold. All I could do was laugh. I'm going, well, first of all, I'm glad you all are surviving. Let's see if you have the same luck tomorrow. But I need to know more about the donkeys. Did you see the crank on that fucking donkey? It was a fucking shadow. Holy shit.
Wow. So have you guys been back to hunt for those?
No, it's funny. So Chris, we got to edit this. I can't believe I'm saying his name. He had the unmitigated gall at the end of the trip to say, for unsuccessful hunts, I up to a year from now, you guys can come back for half price.
Like, yeah, no,
And
bro.
I'm like,
yeah.
You got the nerve to say that. It was crazy. It was like I said, it's like the Twilight Zone. It's like you're waking up from a dream. Like, that can't be real.
Wow. So did you guys actually stay in Alpine, Texas?
No, we stayed in Terralingua. So
yeah,
it was
Ranch Road.
Yeah, that's right.
I pulled it up on the map. There's nothing fucking there.
Nothing.
There's donkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got donkeys. They've got lots of. So when we drove in, and I will say this, so I love the desert. I'd love to. I love being out west, and I love driving through the desert at nighttime because there's so much wildlife activity. So when we drove in, we were coming in from Midland. By the time we got to Terralingua, it was pitch black outside. There's just nothing. And that's the cool thing about the desert is even in the summer, it gets gets chilly, into the 50s and, high 40s at night. And there's no light except for the stars and the headlights on your truck. And there's lots of wildlife. So we saw jackrabbits, javelina, which we don't ever get any exposure to, in the Southeast. There were coyotes. What else did we see? Was that it? Did we see?
Yeah,
I think that was it. We didn't see any like big game, did we?
No, just
on the ride in.
Found some mule deer sheds while we were out there, but for the most part, it was just
the
javelinas and coyotes out there, and a ton of rabbits, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously there's game there, but we sure as heck didn't see anything.
Did you guys try DB's rustic iron barbecue? It's like
We ate. we ate what Josh cooked, which was consisting of toaster strudels for breakfast.
Strong.
Hot pocket.
Let's see. Yep, lots of hot pockets. We made sandwiches while we were, actually out hunting. And then I think we kind of splurged for dinner. I think we did like microwaved bean burritos and lots of green chili. So yeah,
A lot of natural light and some Weller bourbon.
lots of that.
We were whooped. I mean, we get up at 5:30 in the morning, meet our guide at 6, and then we're out there till 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And you're walking. I think we averaged around like 13,000 steps. And you're that's just not flatland walking. So by the time we got done, we were pretty well whooped and got back, and we check in with the wives and family, and because we only had signal when we were at the house, on Wi-Fi. So we kind of did our little check-ins, and then it was off to bed. And the house didn't have potable water, so you had to boil water and make your own water while you're out there, fill up water bottles, and kind of get set up for the next day. So
Nice.
it was like we essentially could have tent camped out there and probably been just as comfortable.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it was
The Adventures of Joe and Josh.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm glad we're starting with, I don't know how much of this agenda y'all want to go through, but I'm glad we started with the one hunt that was unsuccessful. We most of these adventures end with at least walking out of there with an animal or a fish or something going on the wall. So,
Or somebody having to swim.
Yeah.
that may be part of it.
That's going to be the next episode, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Because that whole thing is just, again, it's pure comedy gold, which we get from you guys. And if the folks, when this airs, if one of you can just share one of your little videos on your social media, we'll have it linked in the show notes. One of the tame ones would be fine, but just the pure sarcasm and the reporting that is being done between you two is absolutely genius.
Reporting, that is that's given us a lot of credit to call it reporting.
Oh, you're documenting what was going on in a very humorous, sarcastic kind of way. It was absolutely priceless.
Well, we like to have fun, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's the beauty of this stuff, is that you can come out of experiences like that. I mean, obviously you're trying to, when you hunt, you're trying to kill something. When you're fishing, you're trying to bring something in the boat. I mean, you're always looking for that end goal, but at the end of the day, that is what makes it fun. That you can come out of a lot of these unsuccessful stories and still, have had a blast, and a lot of good memories made there. So.
Yeah, you came out with successful stories. You just didn't fill the tag.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah. And
I got an empty space on my wall.
Yep. The memories you created out of that sometime outweigh the trophy. And that's where you guys are with this story, because trust me, there's more to the story that they did not tell you.
Yeah.
It is fucking hysterical.
Yeah, we probably can't put that on the show.
I better not. I don't want to lose my job or anything, so I better not go into too much more detail.
Yeah, my boss would fire me.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna wrap this show up. We're gonna come right back with these guys again and do another show, and we're gonna have a successful outing on that one. So thanks for watching. Enjoy the show. We'll see you next time. For us, it's right now. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.